everybody, Jim T. Graham with RC Groups, and we're here with Jason Cole, and we're at our local field. One of the great things about Jason working for RC Groups now is that we're both out of Nashville, so we can actually say, hey, let's head to the field. So I sit in my office all day running the RC Groups airplane, and this Dronefly sent me a Phantom by DJI, which actually I'm really stoked about. I'm all over the internet. I'm looking for goggles. I'm looking for how to cover this thing in carbon fiber. I want LED lights now that are really super bright.
Right.
So I'm looking for everything. But before we get there, I thought we should probably fly it first. So Jason is an experienced FPV quad pilot. In fact, you've been flying for how long? How multi-rotor?
Multi-rotor, many years. We probably started 4 or 5 years ago with the multi-wii and the very first boards that were, hobby use that weren't $2,000.
And as a guy that looks at all the threads, I see how complicated people are bending their own antennas, and it never looked like something that I would be able to even dip my toe into. And then when they sent the Phantom, I started doing my research. We blow news out every day. We probably like 3 or 4 articles. But I've never really looked into what the Phantom actually does, and I'm pretty blown away at how simplistic it is. It's basically built for a non-RC pilot to fly, right?
Right, yeah, DJI, this is their entry-level quadcopter, and it comes basically ready to fly. You've done all the work to get it together. How long did that take you to get it to this state?
One evening. I was on a real flight with my son. I went back, I put on all the props, which were simple. 2 sets of props screw on different than the other, and I believe that's because they're self-tightening, which is great, because when you hit the throttle, you want to blow your nuts off, blow these top parts off, and your props blow off. And then I screwed on the feet, and then here's another thing. I always use thread lock, and all the screws come with thread lock pre-applied, which I think everyone in the world should be doing this from now on. And charged up my batteries. I wanted to keep it stock. The only thing I did do is I made this a Dean's because I had multiple Dean's packs at the house. So other than the Dean's connector, everything is stock.
Right, and so having never flown one before, Jim and I were just talking about kind of what we were about to go do, and we said, hey, let's go film this. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the battery in, we're going to set it out in the field, and we're going to power on the transmitter first always. We're going to plug in the battery, and then we're going to watch the LED lights on the back, which tell us a lot of different things. For one, it tells you the state of the flight mode that it's in, whether you're in GPS, ADI mode.
How many satellites you're talking to.
How many satellites you get with the red lights. And so the procedure I always use, I don't like taking off with not enough satellites to have a good solid GPS lock.
I'm holding this up to show that I brought an actual guide because it seemed kind of complicated to me.
Right. That's very confusing, but it basically comes down to plug it in, wait till you get a solid green light, make sure you're in GPS mode on the transmitter, but wait till all you get is a green flashing light. And that means you've got, I believe it's 6 or more satellites that it can see and talk to.
Now, my question is, what if we get out here and there's not 6 satellites? Are there always usually 6 laying around?
Very rarely have I encountered a situation where I wasn't able to get a full GPS lock, and that's been in situations where maybe you're next to a really tall structure, underneath a tree, inside, when it can't talk to the satellites outside. But in a big open field like this today, we're going to have no issues getting a GPS lock. And if you don't have 6 or more satellites, you're going to see the series of, it'll be green flash, and then either 1, 2, or 3 red flashes, which is what this means.
One is good, right?
1 flash is okay for red. You can still take off, and it'll still have enough satellites to know its position in space, and still have fairly good accuracy with 1. I don't usually take off if I have 2 or 3 flashing red lights,
which is less than 5.
But I really like to have solid green, full GPS lock, and you'll notice at some point during that time it'll rapidly flash green, and that's telling you that it's marking that coordinate as the home location.
And you have to let it sit for like 8 seconds.
If you let it sit for 8 seconds, it's going to register that position as home. So if we ever turn the transmitter off or
let me interrupt you.
Fail-safe.
This is the most mind-blowing part about this unit. So let's say that we're flying, and I'll use Mr. Quinn's statement from his video, which, by the way, DJI has a complete series on this, which I'll link to in this article, which are great. But he said if a sumo wrestler ran up, knocked you down, took a boulder, and smashed your transmitter, that the Phantom would then realize there was no signal. It would talk to the satellites, go 60 feet up, or down, wherever, however high it is, and then it comes and lands at your feet.
Yeah.
That's insane.
It's really cool. So yeah, if you're below 60 feet, it's going to rise to 60 feet to avoid any obstacles or trees or whatever that might be in the flight path from where it is to where home is.
Right.
If you're above 60 feet, it's just going to stay there, turn around, come home, kind of stair step and auto land. It's beautiful.
Let me give you a flip side to this cool feature. If you're in your house, which I really wanted to turn this on and make sure it was rolling before I got out here, but if you're in your house and your transmitter dies, that unit will fly 60 feet into the air, which won't occur. It'll just bash into your ceiling. So you definitely don't want to do that in the house or while you're standing there.
Right, and it's not going to happen when the copter's not armed and essentially already flying. You won't be able to encounter that, but the arming procedure, it's kind of, Jim was asking me about the transmitter. If you notice,
it's kind of freaking me out. There's no on and off switch, and even if there was, you'd be going through like 4 props,
right?
2 props,
right. And he also mentioned that the throttle is spring loaded at half stick, and what that's going to be really good for is in GPS mode. You also have an altitude hold mode. So when you're at half stick, the barometric pressure sensor knows the pressure differences, and it's really accurate. It's probably the most accurate one I've ever seen. And it'll be able to hold its altitude, which is really cool. But he's asking me, it's at half throttle, what happens when we plug it in? Is it going to go to half throttle on the copter? And the answer is no, because you have an arming sequence that you have to do to arm the copter and get ready to fly. And to do that, you have to push the sticks in either the bottom inside corner or the bottom outside corners. That'll arm and disarm the copter.
So then we hear the ESCs chirp.
Yep.
And it's initiating. Then we watch this light. It should be facing you. That's the back of the unit. Then the light's going to tell you all those good things.
Yep.
And so let's say that we bring it in and we're done flying. Do we do this to then turn it off?
You can, yeah. The flight board is smart enough to know if you hold low throttle for a couple seconds, it knows basically that you're on the ground and you're there, and it's going to auto shut off, and then you can let off the stick and nothing happens. You'd have to rearm. I prefer to disarm it with the sticks. It's a little bit faster to do that, so I'll land, and as soon as I touch down, I immediately push the sticks in the corners, and that turns it off.
Gotcha. And flight times, 8 minutes, 10 minutes?
8, I've heard other experiences of getting 10 to 12 minutes on these, and it's going to depend on the payloads. If you've got a GoPro and even a gimbal on there, you're going to add more weight, and that's going to decrease your flight time slightly, so you want to watch that and pay attention. Now, it is also smart enough, technology's crazy, that when the battery does get to a certain point, it's programmable in the software, that when it sees that low voltage from the battery, it's going to go ahead and auto come down and at a slow descent and kind of land itself.
So since I went up to look at it last night, I run a Mac, and I don't know if they have this for the Mac, but if I were on since I didn't download the software, it doesn't know at this time to auto land on low battery?
It will do that. It's set for the default voltage. I don't remember what that is off the top of my head, but it is already predefined and programmed.
All right. So I'm good to go.
Yep.
I have to, I'm going to jump the gun here, because right now the goal is can Jim T. Graham, standard RC pilot, fly this thing? And we're going to find that out. But to jump the gun just a little bit, I already want to use either my DX-18 or my Aurora.
Right.
And what do I do then with this auto center?
Well, what we'll be doing, you're going to be getting rid of this completely.
Right.
And we're going to be putting in a new receiver using your transmitter. And it's just like any other system out there. You've got a standard throttle. And when you want to access the altitude hold mode, you're just going to put the stick in the middle. And you just got to feel that. I can mention this too real quick. The flashing lights when you're in the air also tell you more than just your GPS mode and what satellites you have. When the green light is flashing, there's either a double flash or a single flash. The double flash means you're either climbing or descending. When you're in the middle and you're in altitude hold mode, it's just a single green flash.
So that'd be another way to check that out.
So you can put the stick in the middle and visually see the copter and know that it's a single flash, so I am in altitude hold mode and it's going to stay there.
The other thing it tells you is if your battery's getting low, because it'll flash yellow and then red.
Yes, you get some warning lights, some red lights will come on and blink, and when you see that really rapid red flash, your battery, time to land it yourself. You don't really want to let it land itself from a low battery. That's there as a safety backup only, but
Yeah.
you might be over a really steep hill or something. You don't want it to come down and land and fall. You want to bring it back and land it yourself where you want it to land.
And then finally, I mean, this is a white unit, and it's small, and the light's telling us all these things. But let's say I'm at the other side of the field. I certainly am not seeing the light.
Right.
What am I doing then?
Now we've got some, visual markings on here. This is a pretty small unit relatively, and if you're way out in the field, you're not going to be able to see that or know which way is forward necessarily.
And that brings us to...
Yep. So again, crazy piece of technology. It's got orientation control, and what that means is there's two different flight modes that you can access, and one of those flight modes is if I position the copter this way, and that's forward. And I'm going to let it get full GPS lock. I'm going to get this marked as my home position, and it knows that it's facing that way is forward. Now I can access the flight mode that is called course lock, and it knows that that way is forward, and that's the course. So if I push forward on the stick, the copter's going to go that way, no matter what angle or which way the nose is pointing. Does not matter. The copter's going that way.
And that's
going to be course lock, CL on the transmitter.
CL.
Now, what that means is that way is forward, and if I'm 100 feet that way is still forward.
Right, that doesn't sound
So
good.
if I pull back, it's going to go that way 100 feet away from us.
Which brings us to the next setting, which I think I like better.
Home lock. That's what you really want to use if you get disoriented and you're way far out, because what that means is the GPS coordinates that it took off from is the home position. And home lock means if I'm in that mode and I pull back on the sticks, like I want to come back, no matter where the copter is, it's going to come back to home position.
So right is relative to me, left is relative to
Yes.
me, and back is always to
So that's kind of the clutch. I don't know what I'm doing. Home lock, pull back. It's going to start coming back to you. And then even beyond that, you can turn the transmitter off. Just let it come back all by itself.
me. I think that brings us to the end. The only thing we didn't talk about was setting the compass.
Right. Yeah. The compass setting is something you definitely want to do the first time you fly, or if you travel, different time zone or something way far away where the compass headings are a little bit different.
Like when I get
because
to Seth or Joe Knoll.
Yeah, we'll want to do that there, and it's pretty simple. You're going to change your flight mode switch about 10 times back and forth, and then leave it in GPS mode.
Then we're going to see a light.
The light's going to change. You're basically going to pick it up, kind of do a 360 with it.
I think it's a yellow flashing.
The light's going to change. You go horizontal,
Turn green.
go around, and then it's going to initialize, and then you're back in your flight mode setting, ready to go. It's done. That's all there is to it.
Then you're ready to rock.
Yep.
All right. The only thing left to do now is fly and hope that she comes home.
Let's do it.
So when you initially plug in the battery, you want it on the ground. You don't even, after you plug in the battery and put it in, you don't even want to shut the door. You just want to leave it still so it can situate itself. So now leave it alone. Is it going to tell me when it's happening?
And we're going to come back and look at these flashing lights here. So right now what we're seeing is 1 green, 3 red. So we're just to get initialized. It doesn't have all the satellites locked yet. So we went from 2 to 1 red. Now we got a full GPS lock. There's the rapid green flash saying that it's recognizing this position as the home location. Solid green light. We're ready to go.
Sweet. So I'm going to tuck it in, shut it up. All right, so to initialize, I'm going to go sticks in the corner. Correct?
Yep.
And now
That went off.
Now we're good. So I think I'll go up and out a little bit. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to try is just letting go of everything. And there's a little bit of wind, I'd say about a 6. Okay, I'm going to go out a little bit. Go up a little bit. I'm going to go to the right. Okay.
drone. Gonna bring her back in and see if I can land it in front of her. They say the key to the video, and shooting video is my next phase here. Keep it smooth. Expo's good on a real transmitter. And then just shut it off. I go to the corner.
Yep, all the way down. It's your first drone flight. What do you think?
That's super cool. Very non-threatening. I've flown airplanes that are completely out of whack and you were hanging on for your very life just to get it back to the ground. Super easy, and it makes me want to fly a lot. Also, thanks to Dronefly, they wrote me an email and they said, you really got to fly a Phantom, and they sent it to me, and without them I would not be standing here with this Phantom on the tarmac. All right, we just flew it. You know, I cut my teeth on profile planes, and lately I spend a lot of time in the office, so I was on a real flight for quite a bit, but I have to say, even without any of that, if I'd have just walked out here and flown this thing, it was amazingly rock solid.
Yeah.
And while there's tons of videos on these and lots of reviews and stuff, I really wanted to approach it as a guy who just is a standard pilot, you know. And I got it up, I got it out, right, left. I got a little speed on it and brought it back. And then at the very end, what rate do I go down on the left button all the way down?
We were home lock, course lock, and off.
I went to home lock, and to me it felt like it was not coming back. When I pulled the stick back, to me it felt like it was going left, which we're going to look into now. But I'm like, what do I do? Because it was getting out by the trees, and Jason said, turn the transmitter off, which is completely wrong. And so, but I did, and that thing sat there for a second, then it raised up, then it hauled butt over our location, stayed there for a little bit more, and then it came down, Jason said, like stair steps, and landed almost exactly where we took off from.
Yep. Yeah, that happened pretty well. It's as easy as following the directions, getting to a right location where you've got no obstacles, you've got plenty of room to learn. You don't want to do this in the middle of Manhattan.
Right.
And I mean, you've obviously got a lot of airplane experience, but even somebody that's never flown helicopters before can be successful with these. It's going to depend on the person, but Phantom, awesome product. Thanks Dronefly for the donation there.
Yes, sir, and there'll be updates to this. I'm going to change over to another transmitter, not the Phantom-based transmitter, and then I also have a system coming in for video recording, and we'll talk about that when I get it all hooked up to the unit, and then we'll do a series on that. And the goal with that is for somebody like me with no FPV experience, plug and play, get it in the air and shoot a video.
Yeah.
So that's next.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
All right, Jason, man, I appreciate it.
Buddy.
Crazy.
All right.
RCGroups.com, Dronefly, DJI Phantom.